F you Zuckerberg. We just built this and now they're coming out with it. They're feeling like you gave up your job, you like invest money, and the next thing you know, Facebook just squashes you on the day that you go live.
Chris Smith is a best-selling author.
You and Jimmy took Curaytor from 0 to 1 million to 1 million a month. And now if you wanted to, you could exit for multiple 9 figures or 100 million plus.
That was how we got from 0 to 1 million very quickly. It was really a couple strategic moves. Where are you the strongest? And then where are you the weakest? Don't go find another guy like yourself. Go find somebody that's really good. I'm really good at getting attention and getting people into the restaurant. Jimmy's really good in the kitchen, making sure all the food looks great and it's coming out on time. And so that's really sales and marketing, customer service. And that's all a business is. How do you stay consistent? What am I already doing that I do very naturally? If you love book, just take notes during it and then turn that into social media content, turn that into an email newsletter, like your top takeaways. Like if you're on Zillow and you're looking at crazy houses all the time, like part of your email newsletter should be like Zillow gone wild. You got to take big swings.
So I just have to ask, you emailed Zuckerberg?
Yeah. So what happened, this is a great story.
You and Jimmy took Curaytor from 0 to 1 million, 1 million to 1 million a month. Mm-hmm. And now you guys are looking at a potential, like if you wanted to, you could exit for multiple 9 figures or 100 million plus. I was curious, being a salesperson, you get really focused on the sales side, but you've learned to focus on both like sales and marketing, and then also the growth of the company. What do you see for those agents who are high producers as a problem or mistake that they make, not focusing on like marketing or the growth of the company, they're just focused on sales?
You know, things go up and down. I think the time to sell your company is when you're like growing really fast. I think once you hit a decade, you start thinking about, is this something we want to do for another decade? You only get one life. So, you know, you have to choose wisely. But as far as marketing and sales, I would say realtors overall are better at sales than marketing. Like they're usually good people, they're good conversationalists, but they don't learn the art of sales, like the science. They have like the gift of gab naturally, but they don't kind of have that exactly what to say, conversion code, kind of a mindset to the structure of the way that a conversation should unfold. The short answer would be, you're crazy to be doing a lot of marketing if you're bad at sales. You're also crazy to not be doing a lot of marketing if you're good at sales. Some of the accolades I have, success I've had is being, you know, kind of an A at both. But the reality is if you're, you know, really good at sales and not really good at marketing, then you should hire marketing people that are really good, you know, and if you're really good at marketing, but you don't like calling leads, then, you know, you hire salespeople that are good. I think the marketing is tricky because you have to enjoy it. You have to put time into it. And a lot of people just won't put the time. I mean, part of what Curaytor does is we allow you to execute A+ marketing in maybe 1 or 2 hours a week. For a lot of people, they won't even do that. You know, for the people that work the system, they kill it. But there's a lot of people that like, they just won't even block off 2 hours a week.
When you're building the company from 0 to 1 and then like 1 to 10, there's a lot of things going on. If we look at like the market right now, tight and tough, people look at that and it's easy to kind of drop or like focus less on the other. You've been doing blogs, podcasts since 2014.
09 I started.
09.
Yeah.
So how did you balance both even throughout like ups and downs of markets?
Well, the reality is you should do more marketing when the market's tough because you need business more. Probably the biggest mistake people make is they take their foot off the gas when they're busy. When you're scrambling and the market's tough and you're kind of sitting around twiddling your thumbs, you're going to want to do marketing because you're going to have the time to do it and you're going to need to do it. The sweet spot is if you want to do it. I love the clicks, you know, it's kind of my hobby. My personal brand is for me like what golf is for someone else. For me, I just really love the engagement, the growth, the challenge that comes with that. The most important thing is that you love doing what you're doing. If you hate doing it, you'll never do it. You know, our buddy Gary Vee, his new book, Day Trading Attention. That's what it is. It's not that different than watching the market or watching stock. As a byproduct of being good at getting attention, you then can build a business on the back of it, which is what we did.
If you were an agent today and you had to run the playbooks that you know, the skills that you know, and you were in that 0 to 1 mark, what would be some things that you would be running?
It's crazy that this is true, but in most markets, there's a huge opportunity to become an influencer locally because so few people are willing to do it. So like when you think about Brad up in Calgary, Brad McCollum, he came into a proven market and he just owned YouTube. What I would look at is I would look for a marketplace, and honestly, I would look more in the luxury market because luxury agents are usually even like more old school. They don't dominate social, and I would just pick a channel. The key though, I think that's really interesting is that if you can make the house go viral, you're gonna go viral.
Yeah.
So what Brad did is the listing is the star of his videos and he is just the guide helping you navigate the listing. And the other thing is commercial real estate. Commercial agents are old school. They're not doing video tours of buildings. You know, I could call anybody on LoopNet and say, can I come do a video of the office building you're trying to lease? They would all say yes, but they don't want to do it themselves. They don't think they need to.
For everyone else outside of real estate, for example, I have a friend who's 30 years old, killing it in insurance sales, and he's just good at sales. He's kind of stuck at that point where it's like he could either grow the team, he's not really getting into marketing, but he has to like do something to get to that next level.
The answer could be to bring on the peanut butter to his jelly. When I started Curaytor, the demand was there and the supply was not. There's demand for watching awesome videos of houses and the supply is not there. I had agents coming up to me left and right. Hey, you know, I just sat through your class on social media. Can we hire you to do it? You know, we're too busy and we don't know what to do. You clearly know what you're doing. Like, how much is it? And I was getting that asked for years. You know, I was with Inman, I was with realtordotcom, top producer, Dotloop, you know.
Yeah.
I was in corporate America. I talked to my boss. He's really, really a sharp guy. His name is Max Pigment. So I went to him and said, hey, I'm getting these offers to like come back the next day. And he basically just said, wait until the stack of money on the table is more than what you already make. You know, I was in software sales. I was making like $250,000. So, you know, I had to really have a huge opportunity in front of me to not want to do that because I also liked it. So I think part of it is just recognizing demand. And so the reason Andrew and Jimmy are with the company, Jimmy was super smart. Him and Andrew were working together. They built something called the MLS app, but it was a plugin for Facebook that created IDX searches, saved searches, listing alerts on a Facebook page. And I saw them either in a Facebook group or somewhere like showing it off. I actually at the time had like a web show. I'm going to forget the freaking name of my own web show.
Calls with Chris.
Oh, the Q. The MLS app was one of 3 or 4 things that I put into a video that I did. And they just got flooded with agents from all over the country that wanted to like add the MLS app to their Facebook page. And the only issue was they only had an IDX feed from Massachusetts where they live. I knew they had built something that was super cool, in demand, really innovative. They knew that I could send traffic and I had influence over people, you know, purchasing stuff. I actually got advice from a guy named Brandon Wise. He started Wise Agent. It's like a CRM that has a lot of users, thousands and thousands of users. I said, Brandon, I'm thinking about going out on my own. You know, you've been running Wise Agent successfully for a long time. And his advice was you need a partner that's a developer because that's the biggest expense. You know, the most expensive hire for a company like Curaytor is an engineer. Somebody that like writes code, tests the code, maintains the code. And I couldn't do that, but that's what Andrew did. We would notice on Facebook all these products that people loved. Listings to lead, follow-up boss, like super early days. And so we looked at all these different tools that were like really the most popular. And we're like, well, we can more so build the technology that connects those so that they're integrated, kind of like Zapier.
Yeah.
Because they were all really good, but they were all in a silo. And then we also figured out like some of the tools had, you know, big gaps in what we hoped it could do. Like everybody had a website, but nobody had a landing page builder. So we connected all these tools together, sold them as a product, and we basically were charging like a service fee on top. And that was how we got from zero to $1 million very quickly. So it was really a couple strategic moves. It was, you know, bringing on some partners. So back to your buddy that sells insurance, like where are you the strongest? And then where are you the weakest? And don't go find another guy like yourself. Go find somebody that's really good. We always used to say front of house, back of house. I'm really good at getting attention and getting people into the restaurant. Jimmy's really good in the kitchen, making sure all the food looks great and it's coming out on time. And so that's really sales and marketing, customer service. That's all a business is. But I think for your buddy, you know, he would just use off the shelf stuff. In theory, if he's like me, great at sales, he should go find someone that's great at marketing, find someone that's great at service, and scale. But I think the key to making it into a big business is bringing people on as an actual partner. I would not have enjoyed the process of Curaytor without Jimmy.
Yeah.
Now, in your buddy's example, he's got an established business that already is generating a ton of money. If he brought on, kind of role 2 and role 3, kind of like I did, I wouldn't advise him to go like 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 because he's already built it. But he still should be looking for like partners that have equity and ownership the same way that he does.
You kind of brought up the search. I just have to ask, you emailed Zuckerberg about that search with Facebook?
No. So what happened, this is a great story. We were launching Curaytor. So the MLS app, it was a cool idea, but Facebook started changing
the search,
the ability to build custom apps. There was like so many custom apps and games, and it was like spamming the news feed. It was called FBML, like their version of HTML. So they disabled FBML, which basically like made every app go away overnight. When we built Curaytor, we wanted to be, a marketing and sales platform, but we also understood the power of like content, community. Those things are really important if you want to grow. So we were managing several Facebook groups with tens of thousands of agents. We started seeing that people would ask the same question over and over, and there would already be a thread where it was like discussed in detail. But the way the group algorithm works is you only see a couple things. Yeah, you're only seeing like usually the most recent. So we actually built a Facebook group search engine, and we connected 2 different Facebook groups into one interface. So if you went to Curaytor.com, it would actually have a search bar, and as soon as you started typing in like Boomtown, it would surface the conversation with the most comments on that topic, because they didn't even have search at this point. We solved the problem of like finding the best threads about specific topics. And literally like the day we announced it on stage, Facebook introduced what's called graph search, which was literally this. It was like, now groups are searchable. It proved that we were smart because we basically built something that like one of the biggest companies in the world, had neglected building. But the timing was terrible. The thing that I don't think people understand is like Curaytor, the search engine for Facebook groups, that was our content marketing play to feed the marketing company. Even though it like definitely fucked us, it didn't like kill the idea. Because the whole point was like, that was just our, like, how can we stay in front of all these people in a relevant way? It was more like an app that we built that was free that led to the paid stuff that we do. So I didn't email Zuckerberg. I might have emailed Zuckerberg. I don't remember. But I emailed Kara Swisher.
Yeah.
She's like the most famous tech blogger of all time. So I cold emailed her and a couple other of the largest blogs, like in Silicon Valley, Business Insider, all these big ones. And there was one called Pando Daily. So I reached out, basically said, F you Zuckerberg was like the subject line. And I explained that like, we just built this and now they're coming out with it. And so the guy reached back. He's like, I think this is a great story about, entrepreneurship. And like, you give up your job, you like invest money. And the next thing you know, Facebook just squashes you on the day that you go live. You got to take big swings, but that would be the equivalent of like a marketing campaign that flopped.
The ability to pivot, but then also stay consistent is like important when it comes to like product, company, content. How do you know when to be like consistent? How do you know when to pivot?
The way we think about it is innovate or iterate. So there's things that you do well that you should keep doing over and over and never change. So like one example would be the way that we help our clients promote their listings on Facebook. We have built software that has made it infinitely easier and better. Like we're using AI now to where the landing page builds itself, the ad writes itself. It's literally like 30 seconds to do something that took 30 minutes. But the principle of like having a lot of nice photos, strong call to action, that hasn't changed at all. When it comes to content marketing, for me personally, because I was such an early adopter of like blogging and YouTube, I personally like taking big swings on things that are innovative and new that other people have never tried. And I'm like, well, I know a lot about lead conversion. I'll write a book. I wrote the conversion code. It blew up because it was the only book about marketing and sales for real estate, because the other books weren't about that. Even calls with Chris, I was like, you know what? I got on a Gary Vee kick and I'm like, document, don't create. So I just started recording the company calls at Curaytor and putting them out as a podcast. I loved it. People loved it. Now you hear that all the time. Kind of document, don't create. Even little things though. We built an app called the Facebook Ad Grader.
Yeah.
And we put that on Product Hunt. Totally went viral. Had tens of thousands of companies using it like overnight. I actually wrote an ebook that people probably could find if they searched for it, called Death of a Sales Force. So for me, the litmus test is like, do the basics. So like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, videos, like at this point, TikTok, and then just taking big swings along the way. I think what a lot of companies are guilty of is they are probably doing one or the other. So some people are like super obsessed with everything being perfect. And so they don't put a lot of stuff out. That would be like, if we only did the Facebook ad grader and we only did the book, but we never did anything else, no micro content. And then the other probably big mistake is if you're already posting on social media 20 or 30 times a week, but you never drop an ebook, you never do any long form YouTube, you never do any long form podcasting. I'm just looking for what's exciting and different and unique, because then even if I swing and I miss, I don't care.
We'll take the Christmas as an example. You've had multiple years of consistency with that.
101 straight weeks.
How do you stay consistent if you look at the fundamentals of like, okay, these are the things that that helped me stay consistent? What would you say some of those are?
The big thing is, what are you already doing that you could then just sort of like curate into something longer form, like an email newsletter? I'm always looking for marketing tactics, marketing advice, tools, trends, stats, research papers. I do that every single day without any prompting. I love doing it. If you're a realtor, that could be somebody might love going in the MLS and looking at the numbers and like studying the price per square foot of a certain
sharing that.
Yeah, I'm just sort of sharing the research I do that I would do anyway. Like if you're on Zillow and you're looking at crazy houses all the time, like part of your email newsletter should be like Zillow gone wild. If you love numbers, part of your newsletter should have numbers. If you love eating out at new restaurants, every time you eat at a new restaurant, that becomes a chunk of your newsletter. Think about what you're already doing. And this is to answer your question, how do you stay consistent? Don't try to do something new.
Yep.
Like what am I already doing that I do very naturally? If you listen to podcasts, so I'm listening to a podcast every week, if I am, just take notes during and then turn that into social media content, turn that into an email newsletter, like your top takeaways. The only difference there is you just have your notes app on your phone open while you listen.
There's all these things that you stay on the edge of. You're just kind of in the trenches, like looking. I've kind of realized for myself, learning from that, like there's platforms or like people or like there's certain things that like I kind of tend to gravitate back to consistently because I know they're good sources.
Yep.
Is there any like good sources for you?
One of my secret sources that I love is Product Hunt. It's basically, software, AI, mobile apps, and it has votes, so people upvote or downvote stuff. The community on Product Hunt is really tech savvy, and you can't really sneak stuff past them that's not really great. I actually finally asked my assistant to just create a spreadsheet
of all your sources
that I could just go through once a week and go find stuff. Twitter is another secret source for me.
Yeah.
I'm incredibly picky about the people that I follow. I can open up Twitter and get inspiration
who are like
pretty much anytime.
One of your top 1 to 3 follows on Twitter that you like?
There's another guy that really inspires me. His name is Ivan Sorensen. He puts out design where he takes a current app and he redesigns a part of it. Actually, I don't know if you saw when I took all the websites from real estate search portals and I changed the headline. Zillow, we took the headline off and we been trying to get rid of realtors for years and we just can't do it. And then Redfin said, people love our app. Our agents, not so much. I actually got the idea from this guy because he takes these interfaces. The one that first caught my eye was Zillow if there were comments. I actually think it's a good exercise for people, you know, watching or listening to this to like create a list of sources so that you can at any time just go right through the list and go find really good stuff. You can't just rely on the algorithms to bring you stuff.
Yeah.
So I would say like having a sources doc is worth a couple hours of time.
There's a few things that I feel like you do really well, that you have a sources, so that's where you pull the idea. You have a structure, you have some form of like systems and support, and then that kind of lends itself to like being much easier to put out.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of tools, people, systems, processes. Because like if I'm on Twitter and I see this, you know, HubSpot puts out a new white paper about, you know, the one the other day was like the emojis that get the highest open rate. As soon as I read that, I already know this would be for the research part of like CHR, R is research.
Yep.
If I see like a really cool ad campaign, or if I see like somebody that does like a commercial or like something that's really good, that's inspiration. So I'll plug it in there. If I see any, you know, charts, graphs, data, anything, you know, about the housing market or stats about marketing, stats about sales, you know, the S is stat. So it does definitely make it easy to say, where do I put these on the shelf? Yeah. I leave myself a lot of freedom on the C. The C is content. What is just like interesting? What is something you would tell somebody about? What would you tell your wife about? Like something that's just like crazy and off the wall. I think last week it was the Home Alone houses for sale. So just stuff like that. And then the other thing that I do religiously is I like when I have a thought or something that I want to put out there, I always start on Twitter. For me, like a tweet that gets 20, 30, 40 likes is really good. If I tweet this and it performs above average, screenshot, put it on Instagram, guaranteed to perform well. I actually have less followers on Instagram, but they're way more engaged. Because a lot of realtors don't use Twitter. Where is the place that you can post stuff that can then allow you to post it in more places and see how it does?
So it's like the testing ground.
Yeah, where can you start that then allows you to say, okay, if this post gets this much engagement, then I'm going to figure out a way to repurpose it on Instagram, on Twitter.
Yeah, because if I look at some of the different strategies that you use, like what you said, it curates content, like curates stats, curates, if I'm not mistaken, was maybe where Curator came from. I might be recalling.
A curator works at a museum. Picture you work at the Louvre. Every artist in the world wants their art at the Louvre. So these museums get submissions constantly. People just send their art. Like, here's a painting, please put it up. And a curator's job is to look through all of those submissions
And find the best.
Yeah, just find one maybe or two that should go on the wall. With content, it's like I might have 100 ideas, but maybe only one or two of them should be posted. You know, we had these other softwares that we curated.
Yep.
You know, we curated the best and then connected it.
Agents, team leaders, they all have meetings.
Yeah.
And they have all of these events or things, like even a single agent could do like a buyer seminar and curate that content, document it, and post that as an example.
Yeah.
And that's the same strategy.
Yeah, I was on a live stream with the Conversion Club, and I was asking like, how many of you think that you're a good conversationalist? And like every single person almost raised their hand. I said, okay, how many of you think that you're good on video? And like no one raised their hand. You're good like this, like how me and you are sitting here talking. But if I go here and I'm just looking at the lens, hey, what's up, guys? Like, you know, not everybody's great. What I think like along the lines is set up a couple Zoom calls each week with a past client, with a colleague. Maybe it's a coaching call for one of your team members. So you can be here with someone on Zoom and you can capture what I call the Glennda Baker style, where you have the nice camera, you have the microphone, but you're able to like just talk to a person. And I think that's where some of the best content comes from. It could be a meeting, you know, your office meeting every week, bring in a videographer to capture it, turn it into content. But that would be kind of document, don't create in real life.
You see a lot of people talk about it, and this kind of goes into like, okay, now you're moving from 0 to 1 to a little bit 1 to 10, but not quite yet. You're still on that middle ground. I think it's more common in the tech world, hiring overseas. It's become way more common now and commonplace.
Yeah.
And
more acceptable too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's a huge unlock because there's so much international talent.
Yes.
And a lot of creative talent too, especially.
Yeah. With things like Upwork, you can hire global talent at a fraction of the cost of local. And a lot of the work that you need to have done in marketing, manage your Facebook or Instagram account, you don't need to be US based to do that. We start Curaytor, we get from the 0 to 1 with Andrew's ability to code. And then we started needing more than that because we started to become a platform.
Yep.
So instead of just being integrations, it became a full-blown website builder, landing page builder, email tool. We started kind of building our own stuff. We actually had a team in Serbia that was great. Yana and Vlad, we worked with them for years and they were amazing. And we probably couldn't have afforded the US version of them. Once we got to a certain scale, it was kind of okay, instead of freelance developers, let's bring in-house engineers on board that are US based. Or even think about something like an ISA. You can hire a virtual ISA to call your leads. And if it's working and it's working well and it's getting you a good ROI, then you're okay, I need to bring somebody in-house.
I've kind of seen you have an eye kind of for talent, and then how do you look for talent, and then how do you kind of test the talent to be okay, these are the Vlad that I want to hire.
It's just when you're looking for a realtor, the reviews are really important. Any designer especially, you can see the work they've done. They have a portfolio. They can send you examples of their work.
Yep.
Upwork has all of that. You can filter by location, their ability to speak English. You can filter by number of reviews. Usually when I'm recommending for other people, I'll try to provide small, medium, and large.
Yep.
Here's inexpensive, overseas, super cheap, but good. Everybody has a different budget and a different litmus. How many full-time marketing people does a top agent typically employ?
If they're lucky, one.
Right. One. And I'm not against that. But it is impossible to expect any one person to be good at every social platform, every skill. Let's say you're a really good video editor of long-form YouTube videos. You might not be a good editor of short TikTok videos. There's so many skills that you would need. That there's just very few people on the planet that are good at all of them. The idea of building a marketing team is really exciting, but it's usually out of people's budgets. But if you just kind of go through it and say, okay, we're going to put a lot of work into YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Let's say you paid a full-time marketing person $5 to $7K that was with you, they're in your office. I could hire 7 different people
for
$1,000 each that all have a very unique skill set. And then the full-time person, part of their role becomes managing
the 7,
the freelancers.
It's crazy to kind of see because it's you look at someone like Ken and he's basically built that media company, writers, designers.
Yep.
And then you look at what you can do. I'm going to have script writer if I need it, a video editor, maybe a manager. And those 3 people can be a little media team as we kind of scale up the content.
Yeah, a lot of realtors are doing so much video now where you can bring in a freelancer and they can come just to your meeting once a week, but eventually it may be worth a full-time person. If you're taking on a lot of listings and you're doing videos of every listing, the idea of having a full-time videographer on staff becomes a legitimate option for certain people.
You guys have a great quote. You said this back in 2017. It's a lot of teams, brokerages, they grow in spite of, instead of on purpose. So those teams they're doing a couple of million in revenue and they want to get to that 10 million mark. You guys built something that is sellable. So could you talk how salespeople can do that?
I think there's a ceiling for most ideas. For a lot of realtors, you're talking more GCI, 10 to 15 million in production, maybe 20 to 25. So for agents to break through, it's actually very easy. They have to nail digital the way they've nailed IRL. Past clients, referrals, if that stuff's 80 or 90% of your business, instead of wearing that like a badge of honor, figure out how that's actually only half your business because you have all this social media, inbound marketing, content marketing, generating business too. To make huge gains, you have to make huge changes. Our ability to get it from 0 to 10, it was a lot of friends and family. To get to the next level past that, we had to do things like create employee stock option pool where, 10 to 15% of the equity in the company is actually available to people that we hire. To get from 0 to 10, it's a lot of elbow grease and grit and determination. And you're bringing on your brother, you're bringing on your friend, you're hiring a few people out of college. To go from the 10 to the 100 is you're actually now building the top of the company. So you're bringing on COO, CTO. You're bringing people on that have, one, experience working at companies that have done it. And then two, you have to be really competitive with comp plans when you're going after top talent. So you have to be in a position to offer, really great salaries, really great benefits, the ability to, scale. It would be the equivalent of, instead of a realtor hiring like an assistant or an admin, hire a CEO that's not you. And that's scary. It's really, I guess, humbling to think the way that we're going to break through to the next level is that it can't be us that does it. We can still help, but we hit a ceiling like a lot of people hit a ceiling, and we tried everything we could. It just became clear, like, okay, we were very services focused. So a lot of the growth at Curaytor came through hiring people that did marketing for our clients. One of the things we've noticed of the companies that have, outgrown us, like a Follow Up Boss, a Boomtown, Commissions Inc. So we sort of are like services and tech, and now it's like tech and services.
Okay.
We want to be the company that promotes listings for the top agents on the planet. We want to promote all the best listings for all the best agents. We are building listing, marketing, and advertising tools. Like that's our little lane. We're not trying to be an all-in-one platform. We're looking way more at how do we integrate with the top vendors in the space, and it's working. So now we're working on like seller reports and like Instagram stories, email campaigns, but all around like the listing itself. Our value proposition to our customers is their value proposition to their customers, which is like, if you list your home with us, we will get your listing in front of 10 times more people than if you don't.
It's the reason why people like Ken and Brad get listings, because
exactly
they're doing the same thing, but just from the real estate component in media.
Yeah, like if you go with this other lady, she doesn't have a 50,000 sub YouTube channel.
Yeah.
We do. It really does a service to the seller. And then the back end of that is like, you have to communicate that back to the seller, because a lot of agents, like, they do a ton of work under the hood that no one ever sees. Yeah. And then a lot of agents, they don't do great marketing and advertising. So there's really no seller report to build. A, make their listing go viral, and then B, show their seller that you did, and then just rinse and repeat.
The ability to step down from being the top producer or being the CEO is difficult. If you're talking to someone that is kind of looking at that in their business and having to do that,
I would say take pride in the fact that if you can pull that off, you've built a real business. There's lifestyle businesses and then there's real businesses. A lifestyle business, you can make good money for yourself, maybe a couple of employees. A real business, you can, have 50 to 100 employees, multiple locations. If I were running a team, I would have a number on my wall that would be 51%. I would be figuring out, like, I've got to get to 51% of my income being from the people on my team. Because at that point, once you get to that point, you can keep going. But if you have a team or a brokerage even, 90% of your income is from you, you might as well just burn the team down and just be a solo agent with a couple good assistants. If you really want to be 100 million, 150, 200 million a year, you're going to have to think bigger. You have to make bigger changes.
Your culture and the people are everything. And I feel like you've kind of built an amazing culture. How can someone build an amazing culture?
It actually is that simple. It's I don't actually like this quote, but it's so true that your vibe attracts your tribe. If you're going to go work for Brad McCollum, you're going to probably be really into the video stuff that he does. We've always been a little rough around the edges, a little bit like blue collar guys doing white collar work, but that's what attracts people. I mean, I had this one guy come in for an interview named Charlie. He had red Jordans on in the interview. I'm like, well, you're hired. I do think it's just a boomerang. What you put out to the world and the work that you do is your recruiting. A good example is Keller Williams. Their event is called Family Reunion. Remax's event is called the International Business Expo. I'm butchering that, but you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just the language that you're putting out there.
I think a big example of that is you had the culture code, and then you guys, the same way you look at Ken, you look at Brad, you look at you, and Jimmy, you guys even outwardly show the culture, and then that is what ends up attracting the right culture too.
Yeah, exactly right.
Well, thanks for joining.
Yes, sir. Thank you.